So, folks, I have with me a very spectacular and exciting individual from Canada who actually does justice to vocal arts in jazz. Her name is Melody Diachun. Am I saying it correctly?
My family says Dacian,
Dacian.
but I'll take it.
Yeah, it's Diachun. And I apologize because I was trying to find the phonetic spelling online, but it wasn't really giving me anything specific to go by. So, Melody, I've gone through the whole Spotify collection. I've read through your Wikipedia. I thought you were my age, but you're actually slightly older by a few years. But you've gone through an incredible life adventure because you were born in Montreal and then you went down to Annapolis with your family. You learned piano to start your musical adventure. You also took on certain musical instruments, bass and what is it? Not flugel, French trumpet.
French horn, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now, with that said, you're now chair of a school of arts in Vancouver after floating around. Unless that's changed. That was in 2022.
Yes, it's actually in Nelson, BC. But I did live in Vancouver for 12 years, but I've been in Nelson for the past 10. And so Nelson is the southeastern corner of the province, so kind of the other side of BC.
So with everything that you've done, I know that through the albums, the one that was touted as one of the best when you were doing them was Back to the Groove, which was actually given accolades on it being let out. It gave you a top 9, number 9 of the top 20 national charts. But I'm interested in the 2022 release, which was kept mysterious until you actually recorded it. For folks that don't know who Sting is, he's known as Gordon Sumner, and she was the vocal off an album that had Canadian recognized musicians, Michael Okapinti as one, and then a few others, which I'm not sure if your husband was with you on the album.
Yeah, he was. Doug Stevenson, my husband, he played acoustic bass on this album. Okay. He's also a guitar player and electric bass player.
Okay.
So co-produced it, and he mixed the bulk of the album as well. So yeah, he's on it, as is David Restivo, the wonderful Canadian piano player, and our friend Tony Ferraro on the drums.
A sweet ensemble for the album. Were you all together in the studio? Mind you, it was in 2022.
Yes.
And COVID was still a thing back then, and it relaxed. But I'm glad that you managed to do it in studio. What was your experience doing it with a live group of musicians?
You know, it was really interesting the way it happened because we had planned to record in 2020. We had over the last few months of 2019, my husband and I worked on the arrangements, or the beginning of the arrangements, and the 4-piece band minus Michael Okapinti, we did a few shows in early 2020, in February 2020, and then, well, we know what happened. So what ended up happening for us is the studio held the time for me, and they said, anytime you're ready, please come back and record. But I didn't want to record with that stress, with all we were going through at that time. I wanted to have some mental space to do the project. So we actually put it off for 2 years, and we recorded it in May of 2022. But what ended up happening in that interim is that we were able to really think a lot about the arrangements and what we wanted. There was definitely no rushed feeling on this music. And once we got there, we had 2 days in the studio, beautiful studio in Vancouver named Monarch. And we picked the studio because of the beautiful piano there. And so the 2 days in the studio felt amazing, actually. We had an epic.
That's it. That's the album, and we'll come back to that. But you were saying that you chose the area because of a beautiful piano, or are we talking about a grand piano?
Yeah, it's a Yamaha grand piano, and I specifically wanted something that had a great instrument for this fabulous piano player, David Restivo. And there were a few things, and that studio came very highly recommended. So I visited it in 2020. And then it felt really good actually being in the space. It's one of those studios, it's brick walls and lots of wood, and the people there are so nice. And so, yeah, it felt right from the start. And the 2 days in the studio, it felt amazing. We just did, we take a song and we do maybe 3 takes of it, and then move on. And yeah, we recorded everything live off the floor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The process to do the album was over a period of how many weeks? I'm assuming it was, if you're doing multiple takes, it probably didn't take 2 days to do it. You probably had.
We recorded for 2 days.
For 2 days?
Yeah, the full band. One song, as I say, one take after another for 2 full days. And then I did overdub some background vocals when we were back in Nelson after that.
Okay.
I overdubbed a little bit of percussion as well, but everything else was done in those 2 days.
So finishing touches, basically.
Yeah. It was intense, like to focus for that long. You're setting up and then you're recording. You have a lunch break. Basically, it's an 8-hour day of big focus on the music. So it's a lot, but it's also exhilarating at the same time. So everyone's, giving all of their love and energy to the music, right?
Well, especially because, folks, if you actually take the time to listen to the Sumner's Tales, the Music of Sting is what the actual album is called. It flows quite well. There's certain songs that I love from Sting, but I don't like all of his songs. But the ones that you touched on that I actually have close to my heart is Shape of My Heart, for one. Yeah. And then there's Russians. Murder by Numbers, which is actually a very good take on how you arranged it. Trying to say Roxanne. And that's pretty much it. The rest was brand new for me because I haven't really gone that far. You took a dip. How can I put it? You basically cut a ring out of his career. So you took the rings, you spliced it, you then dissected it to make the arrangement workable between all of you. You were a big part in the arrangement, from what I understand as well, for the vocal side, and making sure that the music would not clash with your vocal talent. But it's fabulous. I've been playing it on my show since I got a copy, and people enjoy listening to it, and I enjoy listening to it. So it's such a thing. There's the one thing. Who decided on the actual the album cover? Was it a group-focused initiative, or was it?
Yeah. So I discovered the graphic artist. Her name is Roberta Landreth. Mm-hmm. I saw some of her work, and then I started researching her, and I found out she's been nominated for several Junos because of her album artwork. I went to her website, and everything I saw on her website, I loved it. So I basically stalked her, And at first she said, I can't, I'm too busy. I got too many projects on the go. But because we had all this, luxury of time with the project, we were not rushing at all. I waited a little bit, and then I asked her again, when would be a good time for you? And the window of time we had to put the artwork together worked out for her. So it was really an interesting process. She asked me to put together a bunch of images. She asked me to fill out a questionnaire and actually a little image of where I thought the music was placed. Like, is it warm or is it cold? Is it modern or is it old fashioned? Is it all these different things to describe the music? And then I told her that, the concept of the album, it's music by Sting. And so we came up with this idea of using the bee motif. And then the other images that are on the cover, like the playing card, hearts and diamonds and spades and clubs.
Yeah.
That's a reference to The Shape of My Heart. That song references to playing cards and gambling. And then, there's the bullet motif, because a lot of the songs are related to human frailty, like Fragile or even Murder by Numbers. There's this kind of motif in his lyric about
war and the detriment of the humankind due to it. I know that Russians is particularly based on the Cold War aspect between the U.S. and the what used to be the USSR at the time. But the album has everything iconic on it. Like she mentioned, you got diamonds, hearts, clubs, and spades. You also have the bee, which goes hand in hand with fields of gold.
And Sting.
The bullets, Sting too. The bullets go with what she was mentioning in regards to not murder, but
wartime and peace.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the little crown at the top, which goes for King of Pain.
Yeah, and then the star in the center. There's a line in the lyric for Fragile.
Yeah.
Like tears from the sun, on and on, the rain will fall like tears from the sun.
Oh, nice.
And so, basically, Roberta gave me a bunch of different options for graphics, and I was almost headed in a bit of a different direction, but I also brought in some people who are younger than I am, like my daughter and her partner, and I asked them what they thought, and this is the one that they were drawn to. It's interesting. I think it's a very provocative cover. I didn't want to do what my last album covers were, was just a picture of me on the front. I wanted to do something different. It's more about the music than me, this album.
Well, it's definitely more than you, but it embodies a lot of you, because the album wouldn't exist without your vocal chops. Now, I understand that right now you're very active in music. You're an educator to many. You've gone under the wing in New York of a professional jazz singer who gave you your pointers to move on and become who you are now. Anything interesting that you're delving into when it comes to music education?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. So I moved to Nelson in 2012 after being a freelance musician for many years. And I was a little concerned when I first started teaching at the Selkirk College. I was concerned that it would be impossible to have a focus on my music while I was spending a lot of time working with younger musicians.
Okay.
But what I have found is that I just have to be smart about it. I cannot go on tour in February. Who really wants to go on tour in February in Canada anyway? So my traveling, any kind of touring or any big projects are largely done between May and August. It's totally doable. And the last 2 years, I have not been teaching. I do miss working with the students, because the reality is, when you're a music educator and you're working with people who are 18, 19, 20, around that age, what you realize is that we're all musicians. We're just musicians at different levels of our careers, and what they might not have an experience, they have in enthusiasm, and they're all on fire for what they're doing. So that helps people like me. You know what I mean? Like when you're older in your career and you start to get a little bit, maybe think that you know how things work, it's really good to have that youthful energy around you to keep you inspired and remind you of what you were like when you were that age,
Okay.
And so last 2 years, I have not been teaching, though. I've been acting as the school chair for the School of the Arts, which is 7 programs. That's been intense, but, I had this project kept me busy. It came out in the fall of last year. So just as I was getting into this new position and all of what that entails, a large part of me was very much focused on the release of this album, which kept me balanced, right? So I don't just feel like an administrator.
Well, you've got your musical career behind you to give you a stable support. Speaking of touring, have you already planned for another tour this upcoming few? Well, not in February, but the coming few weeks or months.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a tour happening in the summer of 24.
Okay.
So I have the feelers out there. Now I'm waiting for the universe to come back to me about that.
Okay. Hopefully it'll bring you to Atlantic Canada. We've had the pleasure of having some of the people that are on the album actually visit Moncton on their touring, and it was an unbelievable in regards to having a physical and a present experience to see them in action. When you're going to be touring, is it going to be just you and a few select members, or is it you and other types of musicians that are going to be joining you?
I would love to tour this project. Actually, we did a handful of releases in early 2023, but I truly feel like it's not done. This project is not over yet. It's really interesting because it was released, as I say, in October of 2022, but it feels like people who are not in Western Canada are just starting to find out about it. Like, and I know it's been getting play in Toronto quite a bit, and Montreal, and now you're playing our album as well. So yeah, I'd really love to tour this album with these musicians. One thing that happens sometimes when you're recording with musicians who are such high calibers, that they're not always available because they're in demand.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would find other suitable players, but I would love to tour with this band.
Okay. Now, coming back to you as a human being, because musician and school director and all, not sure you're doing that, but you're still a person, which means that what do you do on your free time? Do you have a hobby that you go to at all, if any?
Yeah. Well, in the winter months, I love downhill skiing. I live 30 minutes away from a beautiful ski hill. And so that's something that's wonderful because, it's like music. When you're doing it, you are in the moment. You cannot stop paying attention to what you're doing because you will hurt yourself. So, okay, music isn't like that usually.
No. Not unless somebody gets frustrated and throws a musical instrument.
Yeah. Keep your head down. But yeah, I love downhill skiing. I love gardening, and I love reading, and I don't know. I'm kind of
very patient woman if you're doing weeding and gardening.
I'm totally new to it, but it fascinates me that every year it's different than the last year. When I look into my yard, things are growing that weren't there before. This weeding section's getting completely out of hand. Yeah. I don't know. I like how it changes all the time, but yeah, I'm no expert, certainly.
Oh well. So at least you have those hobbies. Now, last question is off the wall. It's literally I've been asking it since I've been doing my interviews, but it's what is your favorite dish as in food?
I love pasta.
There we go.
So lately it's been a Roman style Alfredo.
Hmm.
Very simple. All it has is Parmesan cheese, butter, pasta, and a bit of pasta water, and then black pepper on top. And
Oh,
that's all that's in it. And it's just so good, so amazing.
yeah. No, I've got way too many things to dictate, but myself, it's usually chicken roast done the Bréon style, which is northern New Brunswick. It's
Oh,
basically roasted chicken in the oven, but we put it in water, and then you add all the veggies that you want in the roaster,
okay.
and then you slow roast it, and then you keep basting the top of the chicken so that it becomes flavorful and crispy, and then you add to that flatbread that we make through. It's not all the types of flour, but it's buckwheat flour. A specific grade of buckwheat is used to make my traditional family flatbread,
Okay.
which you just add that. A little bit, some add salt, but it's usually the flour, milk, and then you mix it until it becomes less solid than liquid.
Hmm.
And then you add a pinch of baking powder, and you make sure that you boil water so that it's at the top 100 degrees. When it's ready, you then throw it in, mix it around, and you start cooking your flatbread, and you serve it to people. And usually it's eaten with butter. Some use molasses, some use maple syrup. It's just a flavorful, savory versus sweet type of combination. It's just it.
Wow.
I'm hungry right now.
Yeah. What's the name of the dish again?
It's just a roast chicken, but the actual bread is called ploy.
Louis.
Ploy. Ploye.
Okay.
Basically, in English, it would be buckwheat pancakes, but it's not. It's not a pancake by the least because pancakes are thick,
Yeah.
and you can make it as thick as you want, but typically they come out. I'd say probably if you took a toonie and put it between your fingers, that's
Yeah.
pretty much the thickness of it. Many occasions.
That sounds.
Um, yeah, well, it's usable. You can use the flatbread the day after if you've got any leftovers. You cut it up in cubes and then you fry it in the pan with whatever you feel like frying. But typically it's butter and salt, pepper, and you just toss it around to give it some crispiness. And then I eat it with maple syrup on top.
Mm, sounds really good.
I'll have to send you a recipe. Usually I do TikToks when it comes to cooking, but I haven't done many in a very long time.
Right.
But folks, this is the end of the interview between me and Melanie. Thank you so much for attending and giving your time to this particular meet, even if it's long distance.
Thank you so much for playing the music. I really appreciate the time today.